Say, good morning, class. Okay, welcome back to the session. Okay, so we have completed the part about the right to information. Yes. Now, the chapter that we're dealing with is transparency and accountability. The next thing with regard to coverage, apart from the right to information, is the concept of citizens charter. Right? This is what we are, going to cover once we have covered the right to information. Okay, so just take a look at what we are taking a understanding about here. Citizens charter. What is a citizens charter? We're asking the question, what is a citizens charter? Okay. Now, citizens charter is generally covered under a kind of a, you know, concept which is known as quality of public service delivery. Okay, this is the one in which we have the concept of citizens charter, which is known as the quality of public service delivery. In quality of public service delivery, the concept is very simple. I'll just explain to you what is the aspect about this thing. Okay, and by the way, citizens charter is also relevant for your coverage on general studies paper number 4, GS4, because in ethics, which is GS4, ethics, integrity and aptitude, you have a correlative concept of citizens charter. Okay, so in this perspective, in this particular part, we approach citizens charter from the dimensions of covering governance. Okay, meaning we are approaching it from the perspective of governance in GS paper number 2. But also we can approach citizens charter from the dimension of ethics in GS paper number 4. So a lot of what we have covered over here will have some kind of a relevance in ethics, and vice versa, what you have learned in ethics about the citizens charter will have relevance in governance. Okay, so just try to understand what we understand by the quality of public service delivery. Okay, first of all, what do we understand by public service delivery? Okay, now the story goes like this, that for example, if you are a citizen of India, you are dependent upon state for a lot of services. Okay, so for example, water, electricity, let's say in some cases ration is given by the state. Let's say some high end services like getting a passport or having a driving license. Okay, so these are, let's say for example, with regard to your everyday experience of governance. Okay, with regard to your everyday experience of governance. This is where we are. It says that that as a person who's dealing with the government every day, these are the kind of things that you deal with, right? The government, you have to go to the RTO office to get the driving license. You have to deal with the water works department for the water availability in your area. You have to deal with electricity department. You have to deal with, let's say for example, subsidized ration shops if you have a ration card. You deal with something like a passport, right? So these are the things that you are dealing with as a citizen in an everyday basis with the government. Okay, this is the first thing, right? So what we are calling, for example, a lot of things on which a human being is dependent upon. Now you see, if you are, for example, let's say a person of a considerable private wealth, Almost all of these things you can outsource it to private agencies. Okay, for example, you have, let's say, if you are, let's say, not, if you have a lot of money with yourself, but you're not getting drinking water properly from the government, then you can establish your own water facility. Okay, there are, for example, um, this is, let's say, for example, public service delivery. Right? But if you are, let's say, a person of considerable private wealth, you can also get all of these deliverables from the private sector. Okay, the private sector can give you these things. For example, you see, there are societies in Gurgaon, in the national capital region. There are societies, meaning housing societies, which don't depend upon the government to supply waters to them. Okay, so for example, what they do is they buy a huge, these are elite housing societies. They buy a huge tract of land somewhere in Greater Noida, right? And within this tract of land, they create an artificial lake. Okay, and this artificial lake is, filled with rainwater, and they conserve the rainwater over here. And then what they do is they develop housing societies over here. You have, like, towers after towers they develop, and these housing societies, all of them get their access to water, which is everyday piped water, is given to them directly by the lake. You see, so that kind of a private wealth exists in India. These are, like, let's an elite housing society, a kind of a society where the billionaires and the startup founders, etc., of Noida, Gurgaon live, and they have the ability to have their own ways of putting out, generating their water resources. Similarly, for example, the society may also have a huge solar power plant of its own, right? They will have, solar panels established for their own purposes, and they have backup. For example, they have backup generators if the solar power plant don't function in the absence of electricity, absence of solar power, etc. So what they are doing is also supplying, uh, you know, private electricity to these places. They're able to give electricity to these societies. You see the point? So this kind of a, lifestyle exists today in India, where almost all the public service, all the services that a person needs, like electricity and water, etc., can be now privately accessed. Okay, so we in a way divide this kind of a thing, that there are few people in India, the elite classes of India, they can actually privatize almost everything. Right? They will not be, they don't want to deal with the proper problematic electric department or the problematic waterworks department. So they want to keep a private setup for their entire thing altogether for themselves. Right? And there are, of course, the large masses of India. As you move down the income valuation chain, more that you are a citizen of India, of everyday India, more you will have to deal with the government, with the public organizations, to provide you your services. Okay. Now, after the 1991 liberalization movement, it happened to be the case that a lot of these public services were being contested by, after the 1991, a lot of these public services were being contested by the private sector. Okay. So, for example, if you take the whole idea about electricity, electricity used to be a electricity generation, transmission, and distribution. These three aspects of electricity, these were all governed by one single company in India. For example, you have the NTPC, which was involved in dealing with electricity, or the state electricity board, or the national electricity board. But then you have, after privatizations, you have many electricity companies coming into action. For example, you have the Tata Power, you have Torrent Power, you have, let's say, Reliance Power. Many organizations and companies are, working in terms of creating, generating electricity. So what happens is that these organizations directly sell electricity to the customer, and they pay the organizations the money directly. Right. So the government has given particular cities to particular organizations to provide all their electricity, and that kind of a situation is what leads to privatization of all of this thing. Right. So what it means to say that the government is not the only lone player in these essential services that a citizen is procuring today. The private sector has significant ways in which it can start giving all of these things. Right. And the point is that if the private sector becomes more popular than the public sector, then there are going to be problems with regard to the society, which means that, for example, the public sector, all said and done, does not work for profit. The nature of the public sector is not to work for profit, but it works for what you can call some kind of the public sector does not work for profit, but it works for some kind of a public welfare, you can call it public benefit for the greater public good eventually. So it can sometimes marginalize itself and not earn a lot of profits, but still work for public benefit. But a private sector works only for profit. There's no other way of thinking about it. Okay, any kind of an organization which is entering into a privatized idea is working only for profit. It is not working against or for public benefit. Public benefit happens, it happens on its own, but it is not deliberately working for public benefit. It is working only for profit. And the idea is that it would be not such a good thing to have all of these driven away to the private sector, because eventually that would lead the society to have a kind of a problem with regard to the government not giving the services to people and for public benefits, right? You can take, for example, the whole idea of what happened during the COVID-19 crisis as an example of this, that the government hospitals, after all, the government hospitals were the ones who had a reasonable fee structure for admission, right? No matter how problematic the government hospitals were or still are, but at least people who were admitted in the government hospital did not have to pay any money. All of this was being paid by the government itself. Whereas you remember how the private hospitals, they had inflated the hospital charges to such a large extent that people were actually not sure if they wanted to have a treatment for COVID at all if they did not get a government hospital. So everyone was trying to get a government hospital, a government hospital, So these things are what we are taking a look at in terms of why there should be no complete privatization of anything. Okay, but one of the problems is that, for example, let's say I'll just discuss this as an example. The example is that what are the ways in which you feel that uh, how is a private, let's say for example, hospital different from a government hospital? Okay, how is a private hospital different from a government hospital? Now let me just draw out the whole question of it. Does private hospital have better doctors than government hospitals? No, it is not correct. Does a private hospital have better equipments than the government hospital? No, it is not correct. Okay. Does the private hospital have more experience than a government hospital? No, it is not correct. In fact, the government hospitals in every district have more experienced doctors, better equipments, better facilities, and a better experience and competence in terms of its entire medical fraternity and staff than a government hospital, right? That goes without saying. The problem is what is known as quality of service. Quality of service. That the experience that you can get in a private hospital is something that you will not get in a government hospital. What do I mean by experience? For example, when you go to a government hospital, you go and talk to a doctor over there and you say that this is happening to me. Okay, how can I deal with it? Right? So government hospital doctor will dismiss you in 2 minutes. He'll write you prescription, say eat this 2 times a day and get out. Right? They will not entertain you. They will not be nice to you. They will not be necessarily, you see, very careful in keeping your considerations in mind or be compassionate towards you, etc., etc., right? Similarly, government hospital departments and facilities may not treat you properly, right? You may have to stand in long lines and long queues, and sometimes the doctor is not there for 3 hours, 4 hours. Sometimes the procedure which has been appointed to you has not been conducted for 4 days. Sometimes the roof of the building has collapsed and the whole department has been put to a shutdown. All of these things are what we take a look at when we understand this kind of a situation, right? So the idea and the concept and the question about it is that the experience that a person gets by a private hospital is much better than a government hospital, right? That you will not have to wait in long lines, that the doctor will explain you everything nicely, that you will have a proper clean bed to yourself where you can sleep, and you will not have to wait for 5 hours to get your food and delivery, etc., etc. So that kind of an experience of a private hospital is better for a patient than the government hospital, and that's what is called a quality of services kind of a thing. And the reform which has been introduced in governance, okay, when we're talking about reforms in governance, reforms which has been introduced in governance is that the government cannot afford a position where everything is privatized, and therefore the government has to compete with the private sector in improving the quality of service delivery, right? This is the idea of a reform, that within a government organization you will have to think of it as a quality of service delivery kind of a thing. So not all people who have the ability to go to the private should go to the private. People should keep coming to the government hospitals to get the government services, to be allowed to be changing, participating in more effectively with the government organizations, which means that you have to improve the quality of service delivery, right? Which means that you have to make the experience of the person better, to make it less painful, to ensure that all of these things are better in terms of how this is coming to the people of India, right? That is what has given rise to one of the concepts within the quality of service delivery, which is known as a citizens charter. Okay, what is a citizens charter? Okay. So that's basically, I'm just building a background to the conceptual framework upon which the citizen charter rests, and that concept is the quality of service delivery. Clear? That is the conceptual framework upon which the citizens charter rests, right? Now the idea over here is very simply and basically this, that when you take, for example, let's say, again, let me take an example of a person who is going to the passport seva kendra. Okay, the government is the only organization which can issue passports, and this person has to go to get a passport for himself. Passport seva kendra. How does this happen? What kind of a thing is it that a person has to go through in the form of an experience when he's going to a passport seva kendra, right? Now let's say, for example, if he walks into the building of passport office, right? He has to find a lot of answers to the questions. Okay, for example, one question is going to be, what is the procedure for applying for a passport? Okay, second question is going to be, what is the fees for applying for a passport? Third question is going to be, how many days does it take for me to get my passport ready? Fourth question be, what is the time period of a passport and when do I need to renew it? Okay, fifth question is going to be, uh, which officer will give me the form to fill for the passport issue? Sixth, which officer will give me what, for let's say, for example, a kind of a you have to get a kind of a, what you can call, a ratification from a senior officer somewhere, right? Then he will ask the question, what is the question of the what you can call, a police unit coming to my house and investigating that I am living over there, etc., etc. So this entire aspect of how a passport is issued to a person, a normal citizen, an everyday citizen, is going to be very, very uh, kind of dumbfounding. They would not be able to make a very clear understanding of how the passport is issued and what application has to be signed, or where signature has to be attached, or what documents have to give in, and all of these things. Now, what is our experience of going to any government office? Let's say, for example, if you want to collect your degree from a university, right? The whole idea is that you enter into the office and you see this kind of a typical government office in India, and no one is interested in telling you what to do. No one is interested in, guiding you through things. No one is interested in making you sit and understand things, answer your question, take your problems properly. They are so overworked, or generally not interested in giving you that kind of a quality, because government servants have a permanent tenure. They cannot be moved away from their salary by termination. So their behavior and competence does not really matter as much. That's why people are so inclined to join the government services. Right? So what we're looking at is a conceptual understanding and points within which what we see is that your experience of going into the government office is a little bit of a lot of problems. So how do you find a solution to this? The solution to this is that there is always some kind of a agent acting in the middle of things, right? There's an agent. For every government department, there is an agent. Now what he does is, he says, you go to the Passport Seva Kendra, and outside the Passport Seva Kendra, you will see some agents sitting around there. And they'll say, "Aapko passport banwana hai, aapko kya karna hai? Tell me, I'll get it done for you." Okay? So let's say you hire an agent for yourself. Now what he does is, he says, "You give me 2,500 rupees and I will do all the formalities for you. You just have to come and sign on this place on this date. आपको बस signature करने आना है, और मैं आपको बता दूंगा what documents you need, what what time period, etc., etc. I will give you all the information. You just have to come on this date with your photograph and your signature and execute that at that point of time." You see the point? So that's the whole solution that Indians have found, that you have a lot of middlemen, a lot of what you can call, agents who have cropped up before every form of government organization, which is an extra expense to people, and which is, in all honesty, a kind of a slime on the system. It is not really a part of the system, but these agents have become like middlemen and brokers between yourself and the government organizations. You see the point? So sometimes people who are working in the government, what you do is you give 2,500 rupees to them, and this person gives 500 rupees to the person who's sitting inside the government, which is a form of corruption. You get the point? And therefore, this 2,500 rupees is now becoming a part of a corrupt kind of a thing, where 2,000 rupees are taken by the agent, etc. And so, because the people in the government department are earning extra from the incomes of the agent, it is also the case that they will not listen to you directly without an agent, because then they will not be able to make this money which is coming to them. Right? So what you see in this particular regard is the question which states that the government of India, with regard to its service provision, has created a lot of problems for the citizenry, under which this kind of a question is not getting a very clear response from the people directly, and these vested interests, corruption, incompetence, all of these things are coming together, clubbing together, and making the quality of service delivery very poor for this kind of person, right? So eventually he feels harassed and extorted, and he spent a lot of money, and still people are not getting a response to his thing. So by the time you are done with the entire process of, let's say, for example, getting a railway ticket or a passport in India, you are at the verge of feeling very harassed. Okay? Whereas, for example, you have another, let's say, experience of, getting some kind of a document otherwise. Let's say you get your, let's say, you go to a Make My Trip, okay, and make my trip, you are giving them money, but with return of that money they're giving you all the value, they're giving you the best of the foreign stays, the best of the, everything in the market, everything is happening properly according to you. So you are very delighted by the experience and this quality of service that a private organization is giving you as opposed to a government organization, right? To solve this problem, the idea of a citizen charter was invented. Okay. Now, what is a citizen charter? Citizen charter is a kind of a document. First of all, let's be very clear about what a citizen charter is. Citizen charter is a document which is issued by a government department, right? So any government department which is involved in a public service delivery has to issue a citizen charter. Okay. Let's say, for example, the Passport Seva Kendra has to issue a citizen charter, which means what? In the citizens charter, there are going to be very clearly defined points which have to be covered. For example, in a very elaborate manner, the procedure for getting a passport would be given to you. Okay. Then they would tell you, this is a document which had, it's like a document in which any kind of a question which can be asked by a human being with regard to procedure, with regard to the intricacies of attaining a passport, can be given in a documentation format for everyone to read in simple language, right? Timeline within which a passport has to be given. Okay. Let's say the third thing that would be given is what is the fees for getting a passport. Then a fourth point would be, how do you, let's say for example, ensure that, let's say if your application has been rejected or it has not been properly responded to, how can you file a complaint against the, how can you file a complaint against the person who is issuing or not issuing passport against you? What is grievance redressal? For example, how can you file an appeal? How can you file a complaint, etc.? Right. So all these informations which you would technically have to depend on agent or someone to tell you, now it is necessary for every government organization to give you this information directly without their being dependent upon on a middleman on a citizen's charter document. Right. This is what the point about the citizen's charter document is. It is indeed a kind of a right to information, a right to a very categorically framed proper information in which you, every kind of a question or query that you may have with regard to a service that you're accessing, you will be able to get that from that particular department's website. And that's a layperson's and everyday citizens introduction to the known, the understanding of the department, right? So it's like a blueprint of understanding the entire department that you're dealing with. The citizens charter will have a list of hierarchies, who is which officer, who is which officer, who is which officer, what time does he hold office, right? If you are looking for this kind of a service, you go visit to this officer. If you're going to go to this kind of a service, you visit to this officer, etc., etc., right? So these are the elements and points which are being covered in the document of the citizens charter. It's like an introductory document which has been given to a person who is new to dealing with the public administration, and it is a sense of empowerment which is given to the citizens with regard to deal with the public department directly without there going to be people, reference se baat kar lo kisi se, I know that officer, go and talk to him, he will tell you. All of this can be avoided if you have the ability to just go on a government department that you're dealing with. On its website, there is a portion of the citizens charter. It is mandatory for all government organizations to maintain a citizens charter. And once you have access to information which is given inside the citizens charter, you can get a better sense of how to deal with the government as such. You have to spend some time, but all that allows you to do in better terms is you get a kind of a blueprint as to how to deal with a government organization, right? That's the whole point about a citizens charter. Let me take an example of citizens charter to you. I'll show you the citizens charter which has been developed by the Passport Seva Kendra. This is under the Ministry of External Affairs. Okay, take a look at this. This is a document which is available. You can take a look at the website over here. Here, take a look at the website. This is mea.gov.in, right? Ministry of External Affairs.gov.in, and this is the Citizens Charter of the Ministry with regard to what is happening over here. Take a look at this. You see the point over here, Citizens Charter, January 2020, and the title which is giving over here is Improving Public Service Delivery. Right? So the way in which public service is delivered to its citizens is going to be improved by the help of the Citizens Charter. Okay, delivering services to citizens is at the heart of what MEA does. Our continuous effort is to provide a responsive and efficient delivery of citizen services. Right? Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. This is what is a Citizens Charter. Now, take a look at this. What are the services which the Ministry of External Affairs is involved in? First and foremost, the service which the MEA is undertaking is the passport services, right? So it has listed the services under which the MEA is involved, and the first of them is a passport service. Okay. Then second is what you can call a consular service. Okay. The third is Overseas Employment and Protectorate General of Immigrant Services. Okay. Right. So these are the three services given in the Citizens Charter by the Ministry of External Affairs. Right. So you have a list of services which this department is giving: passport services, consular services, and outside employment services. Now, take a look at this table. You have, with this regard, the first point about issuing of an ordinary passport, right? This is one service rendered. Okay. Information which is given: what is the fees or charges for getting this kind of a registration? You see the point? So take a look at this. Fee calculator is available on the Passport Seva online portal. Follow the link or refer to this link. Okay. So that, for example, let me go to this page, get a sense of what it is saying. Well, it's not working. Why? After all. Currently, none of these links are working. Anyway, so ideally, the fee calculator should be accessible by the clicking of this link. You can look at the kind of passport, etc., that you're choosing, and you'd be able to calculate the fee regarding it. Okay. Then what is the procedure? Step-by-step procedure is available on the Passport Seva online portal. Okay, let's keep our fingers crossed if we have access to this. Okay, even this is not running. Ideally, you should have a link in which a step-by-step procedure should have been there, by which you could have taken a look at the procedure through which a passport online, a Passport Seva online portal can be accessed. Okay. Indicative timeline. Okay. So it is supposed to indicate a timeline to you under which you can get your passport. Okay, so for a fresh issue, if a new passport is to be issued, up to 30 working days, police verification period excluded, right? So within 30 days of your application plus the police verification period, your passport will be issued to you. Okay, for reissue, up to 7 working days in cases where pre-police verification is not required, and up to 30 working days in cases where PV is required. Okay, and for Tatkal passport, up to 3 working days, subject to the condition that the applicant is eligible for the issue of passport under the Tatkal scheme. Right. So this is a kind of a information layover which has been given by the department to get you a kind of a introductory sense as to how you can deal with a particular case with regard to availing government services, right? Issuing of ordinary passports. So similarly, you have the question of issuing of diplomatic passport and official passport, right? The what is the fee, what is the procedure, and what is the timeline. Similarly, issuing of a police clearance certificate for Indian passport holders applying for long-term immigration visa in respect to some countries' employment visa. What is the fees? What is the procedure? What is the timeline? Right. So what I'm trying to indicate to you is the fact that once you are reading a citizens charter of any government department which is taking any activity in government services, you have a kind of a basic introductory level knowledge before you enter into the government department, so that you can avoid the instances of corruption, being duped by agencies, etc., etc. Right. Another, for example, let's say if you are feeling that let's say a person in the passport office is misbehaving with you, or is asking for bribe, or is corrupt, or is not responding to your questions properly, in that condition, what you can do is you can avail to these areas of grievance redressal. Any grievance or complaint arising out of any non-compliance of service standards, failure in delivery of service, or in functioning of the passport authority may be logged online at this person, here, and here, right? So this is basically a question is asked that if you have to register a complaint against someone, or some action has not been done properly, how do you raise that issue? And the way that you can raise that issue is by the question of grievance redressal as it is given in this particular thing. Okay, so this is what you can have as a kind of a simple standard way in which organization works with regard to dealing with the citizens charter, right? Oh, this works here. Okay, so for example, the second kind of services, you have consular services. Within consular services, first is apostille and attestation services, right? So if you have to get an apostille done, you have a hyperlink which tells you all the ways in which apostilles are organized. Okay. Yeah. So this is what is a kind of a demonstration and an understanding of the concept of a citizens charter, right? I hope I'm able to give you a bit of an introductory sense. However, it is quite humorous to see that we are still a long way to have uh, efficiently working citizens charter, because the government is obviously not paying many attentions to keeping a update upon them, right? Okay, so here's a document with regard to citizens charter. It is a document issued by the Indian Institute of Public Administration and sponsored by the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, Government of India, which is going to be a kind of a simple understanding of how a citizens charter works. Okay. So I'm going to just refer to some amount of literature from this document, and we will create notes on this as to what is the experience that India is having with regard to a citizens charter. Okay. This is a basic document, a document which is sponsored by the government of India, which can talk about how we deal with the concept of a citizens charter. Okay, so take a look at this part. Okay, we start from here in terms of our historical development of the Citizens Charter, meaning what, let's say for example, if I, in fact, what you can do is just start taking the notes of it. I'm going to pull out the relevant parts from this document and dictate them as notes so that you have a kind of a simple understanding of them. Let's say, just put the title Citizens Charter. I've explained to you the concept of what a Citizen Charter is in terms of an instrument of good governance. Okay, first you can give a heading under this to complete your notes, the point about historical background. Please write this historical background with regard to the covering of Citizens Charter. Historical background. Write down. Okay. Write in point number 1. With the 1991 LPG reforms, with the 1991 LPG reforms, with the 1991 LPG reforms, which are liberalization, privatization, and globalization reforms, and the subsequent emergence of, with the 1991 LPG reforms and the subsequent emergence of, and the subsequent emergence of a strong private sector, and civil society, with the emergence of a strong private sector and civil society, strong private sector and civil society, a strong private sector and civil society, the role of the government, the role of the government, the role of the government as the exclusive, the role of the government as the exclusive, service provider, as the exclusive service provider, came under question, comma, which in part was a good news, which in part was a good news, as citizens now had options, which in part was a good news as citizens now had an option, which in part was a good news as citizens now had an option, to choose, now had an options to choose service providers, and not only rely upon the government, but due to the profit motivated nature of civil society, but due to the profit motivated nature of civil society, and 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 the lack of financial stability, due to the profit motivated nature of private corporations, not civil society, sorry, please cross it out, Instead of civil society, write down private corporations. Instead of civil society, write down private corporations. And the lack of financial basis of the civil society, the role of the government cannot be the role of the government cannot be the role of the government cannot be diminuted. The role of the government cannot be diminuted. Full stop. But for the government to remain as an efficient service provider, but the government to remain an efficient service provider, but for the government to remain an efficient service provider, it is necessary to improve the quality of service delivery. It is necessary to improve the quality of service delivery. It is necessary to improve the quality of service delivery. It is necessary to improve the quality of service delivery. Full stop. It is necessary to improve this quality of service delivery. Full stop. Okay? Improve the quality of service delivery. Full stop. Next point. Write down. Many countries have introduced a range of public service reforms. Many countries have introduced a range of public service reforms. Many countries have introduced a range of public service reforms to institute accountability. A range of public service reforms to institute accountability and enhance citizen participation. A range of public service reforms to institute accountability and to enhance citizen participation. And to enhance a citizen's participation. Full stop. The Citizens Charter experiment of UK, became a pioneering influence. Became a pioneering influence in shaping these reforms. Full stop. Next point. In India, a conference of chief secretaries was held in 1996 in New Delhi. In India, a conference of chief secretaries was held in 1996 in New Delhi to develop an agenda for effective and responsive administration. To develop an agenda for effective and responsive administration. To develop an agenda for effective and responsive administration. Under which a recommendation was made to introduce a citizens charter in a phase-wise manner for as many service institutions as possible. To introduce citizens charter in a phase-wise manner for as many service institutions as possible. to introduce Citizens Charter in a phase-wise manner for as many service institutions as possible. Full stop. Next point. The cabinet secretary, the cabinet secretary, the cabinet secretary wrote a letter to all the secretaries of the ministries and departments. The cabinet secretary wrote a letter to all the secretaries of ministries and departments in 1997, highlighting the need for a citizens charter. Highlighting the need for a citizens charter. Need for citizens charter. Incorporating essentially, write down this in apostrophes, okay, we are quoting from here, essentially citizens entitlement to public services. Essentially citizens entitlement to public services, comma, wide publicity of standards of performance, quality of service and access to information. Citizens entitlement to public services, wide publicity of standards of performance, quality of service and access to information. Quality of service and access to information. Full stop. Okay. Write down the next point. The Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. The Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. Under the ministry of Personnel and Training, under the Ministry of Personnel and Training, comma, Administrative Reforms, Public Grievances and Pensions. Under the Ministry of Personnel and Training, Administrative Reforms, Public Grievances and Pensions. Public Grievances and Pensions. Okay, this is the ministry that we're referring to over here. Full stop. Became the nodal agency to implement the Citizens Charter. In all departments of state and central government, of central and state governments. In all departments of central and state governments. In all departments of central and state governments in India. in a phased manner. In India in a phased manner. Full stop. Okay, so this little bit is a kind of a bit of a historical background about what are the key ways in which the Citizens Charter came in inception. We have, for example, the understanding of UK being the country from which India was influenced with regard to the Citizens Charter, and then we have an understanding of the ministry and the department, which is the nodal agency, which has the power to oblige every government department in India to adopt a citizens charter and to monitor the quality of that citizens charter. Okay, that's the point that we are going to take a look at, right? So this is a brief understanding of the historical background of the citizens charter. Clear? Okay. Now we can put the next subtitle after this. Write down. The next point, write down. After historical background, the next subtitle that you'll have to write down is essential elements of a citizens charter. Essential elements of a citizens charter. Of a citizens charter. Essential elements of a citizens charter. Okay. In this, write down point number 1. Yeah, before writing a point number 1, just write down a little bit of an introduction to this. The DARPG, what we have understood on top is Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. We've written about the department above. This is an acronym to denote the department. The DARPG, in its initial visualization of a citizens charter, in its initial visualization of a citizens charter, initial visualization of a citizens charter, in its initial visualization of a citizens charter, initial visualization of a citizens charter, gave the following 6 elements, gave the following 6 elements, 6 elements that must form a part of a good citizens charter. Elements that must form a part of a good citizens charter. That must form a part of a good citizens charter. Okay, first element, take a look at this. That will form a part of a good citizens charter. First element, take a look at this. Vision and mission statements. Write down vision and mission statements. Any kind of a question, very descriptively boring basic question on citizens charter can be answered by giving a kind of a what are the major components that must be included in every citizens charter, right? So for example, if you have the passport seva kendra, you should have vision and mission statement so that the person knows that what is the department dealing with and what is the department's objective, right? That kind of a thing, vision and mission statement. Second, details of business transacted by the organization, right? So remember, in the passport seva kendra citizens charter, we had seen the services given by the passport office, which is issuing of the passport, consular service and outside employment services. Details of businesses transacted by the organizations. Details of businesses transacted by the organization. Okay. Third, details of clients. You understand the term clients has been used over here, a very corporate term, you see. And this idea is a very corporatized concept. That is what basically these things are intended to do, to be able to compete with the private organizations, right? So you cannot just take people as idiots who are coming to you for services. they are as good as a client to you. Because of them you exist. The government departments to have to develop this consciousness, a little bit of an understanding of a private corporation, that a private corporation works tooth and nail to provide a good experience to the customer, and the government organization keep dismissing the customer as an idiot. That mindset has to change, and that is why it is reflected in the terminology, that the term which is used is details of clients, but basically it means to say who are the people that you are serving, right? Who is your audience? You see the point? So for example, a passport office will write any person who is a citizen of India can apply for passports. So you have to write a detail about a particular specific thing that you're dealing with. Clear? Then fourth, details of service provided to each client group. What are the separate services provided to separate groups of people, right? Let's say for example, if you have a division of age, let's say you are a vaccination center, okay, and you have to have different vaccinations which are given to different age groups. So 1 to 20 this vaccine, 20 to 40 this vaccine, 40 to 60 this vaccine, 60 over this vaccine. So you have to give a kind of a description of these categorizations, these classifications properly to enhance the information of the clients which are coming to you. Okay. Fifth, details of grievance redressal mechanisms and how to access it. This we have seen it. In case there is a default on the part of the government department to perform properly, the people should know where through file a complaint. They should be very clearly in availability of that information, right? And expectations from the clients. It should also have a find of what are the citizens expecting the government department to do. For example, if the government department is doing one thing, but this part is missing, citizens have a way of communicating to the government department, and the government department would put the expectation of the clients inside the citizens charter, right? So a simple notation of 1 2 3 4 5 and 6 is a good creation of a information base to deal with the concept of citizens charter, if you want to answer a question in this framework or in this regard with it. Okay. Right, you've written this. Take. Okay, now you can give the next subtitle after this, essential elements of citizens charter ke baad you can write down the 6 principles of citizens charter. The 6 principles of citizens charter, right? What are the guiding philosophies of citizens charter? Just write down again enumeration of a list, 6 principles of citizens charter. The citizens charter handbook uh, given by the DARPG identified 6 principles of citizens charter. Okay, these are published standards, openness and information, choice and consultation. Write down these 3, 1 2 3 4 5 6. Published standards, openness and information, choice and consultation. 3, courtesy and helpfulness. 4, redress when things go wrong. 5, and value for money. 6. These are the 6 principles of which are guiding philosophies of what should inform a citizens charter, what should be a part of the citizens charter. Okay. Published standards, openness and information, choice and consultation, courtesy and helpfulness, redress when things go wrong, and value for money. Okay, so these are the 2 answer writing fodder which you can keep with yourself with regard to citizens charter. One is the 6 elements of citizens charter, what should be present in the citizens charter, and then you have the 6 principles of citizens charter. It would do you good just to memorize them simply and keep it as a ready to dispose memory item. In the case a question is ever asked about citizens charter, you can create a chart everywhere and write down the points in which we are writing a simple description of an answer of what a citizens charter is. Okay. Okay, now we take a look at what is basically understood as the next part is going to be challenges of implementing or challenges in implementing the citizens charter. Challenges in implementing the citizens charter. Okay, so what is after this entire thing, government of India was still not able to implement the citizens charter uh, completely. So the government of India identified what are the challenges which are coming in the middle, right? And the answer to that was number one, aligning public service delivery performance in India with citizens' expectations, right? But maybe citizens are expecting something else and the public service delivery is focusing upon something else. Okay. Institutionalizing continuous improvement and assessment of performance in the government organizations against clear and improving standards. Okay, so you have, you understand what forms a good standardization of a public service delivery. What is a good product? What are the good ways in which it can be done better? How can it be technologically upgraded, etc. Right? These are the challenges which were faced by the government of India. Benchmarking the quality of service delivery by government organizations and grading them on performance. Okay, again, this is more or less self-explanatory. And providing public service, providing government organizations as a scheme for acquiring and retaining a symbol of excellence in service delivery. Right. So all of these focused upon one thing, which was very simply known as that the government departments were still not able to improve the quality of service delivery. Okay, all of this kind of offered into this. Right, and as a result to this challenges, the government of India launched a certification scheme known as Sevottam. Right, this is an important part, sometimes also known as a Sevottam model. Right, Seva means service, Uttam means first, right? So first class service, that kind of a thing was developed. A certification scheme called the Sevottam has since been launched to address some of these issues, right? This is known as a Sevottam model. The scheme provides for the award of the Sevottam symbol of excellence to public service organizations that implement and are able to show compliance to a set of management system requirements that have been specified in a specially created standard document. Right? This is what is a kind of what you can call a rating system, that the government departments which are involved in public service delivery will now be certified by what is known as a Sevottam. And Sevottam would have a kind of a set of standards, and upon an inquiry and investigation done to a particular kind of a government service, if it is meeting those standards, that government servant or government service or government department would be awarded with the Sevottam symbol of excellence to public service organizations that implement and are able to show compliance to a set of management system requirements that have been specified in a specially created standard document. Okay, it takes into account the Sevottam standardization. It takes into account the unique conditions of service delivery by public service organizations in India and the sectoral and regional variations in service delivery standards, and offers a systematic way to identify weakness in specific areas and rectify them through changes and process re-engineering. Right, so it's like a standardization certification principle was established to give it to government departments to motivate them and to incentivize them to get the point of what is a excellency certificate. Obtaining a Sevottam symbol of excellence requires Number one, successful implementation of Citizens Charter. Number two, service delivery preparedness and achievement of results. Number three, sound public grievance redress mechanism. So, right, these are the three what you can call conditions. If it is fulfilled by a public department, it can be given a Sevottam certificate, right? Now, when you become officers in your respective departments, you will be motivated and incentivized to work better, because if you work hard and if you are able to implement these aspects of the points of the situation, you will have your department being recognized as a excellent department in service delivery by the Sevottam, a symbol of excellence. Okay, based on the objective of the Sevottam, the Bureau of Indian Standards developed a IS 15700 2005 after following the laid down procedures for standard formulation. A panel of 15 experts from 11 organizations include government departments, industry association, public sector undertakings, DARPG, Tata's Consultancy Services, Quality Council of India, Bureau of International Standards, prepared the draft standard, which was widely circulated for comment among 250 stakeholders, including the secretaries of government departments, all major industry associations, and others. Right. So this is the story of the development and the adoption of the Sevottam standardization certification. With the adoption of Sevottam, India became the first country in the world to publish a requirement standard for quality management of public service delivery. The standard highlights management responsibility for customer focus, use of tools for achieving quality standards like service quality policy and citizens charter, internal and external communication requirements, documentation requirements, and the mechanism to implement, monitor, and measure the improvement of delivery. Okay, so within the Sevottam model, Citizens Charter has become a major compliance criterion for being considered as Sevottam. It is also a significant module for process quality assessment and effectiveness assessment. You see the point? So, one of the three things that you need to be certified as a Sevottam department is the effective implementation of the Citizens Charter. Right, and that is what is being prepared as an incentive for the governments to prepare and implement and execute the better ideas of Citizens Charter. Okay, so we can take a look at this part. Challenges in implementation of Citizens Charter. Write down under this, please. Challenges in implementation of Citizens Charter. Please write down. Challenges in implementing a Citizens Charter. Please write down. A review made of a review made of a review made of the implementation, a review made of the implementation, a review made of the implementation, a review made of the implementation of Citizens Charter in 2003, 2004, 2004, 2004 revealed a systematic challenge, revealed a systematic challenge, revealed a systematic challenge, revealed a systematic challenge faced by revealed a systematic challenge faced by revealed a systematic challenge faced by government departments, government departments, which was of the quality of service delivery, which was of the quality of service delivery, quality of service delivery. comma. As confusion existed, quality of service delivery. As confusion existed with regard to WRT, as confusion existed with regard to WRT, what forms good quality? What forms good quality? And and sometimes the departments would be afraid of mentioning quality in citizens charter. Department would be afraid of mentioning quality in citizens charter. Departments would be afraid of mentioning quality in citizens charter, as the citizens will have great expectations. As the citizens will have great expectations. As the citizens will have great expectations. Full stop. Paragraph. Change paragraph. This created the conditions. This created the conditions. This created the conditions. This created the conditions for. This created the conditions for. This created the conditions for the development of a standard, of a quality standard. This created the conditions for the development of a quality standard. Created the conditions for the development of a quality standard. Created the conditions for the development of a quality standard. Created the conditions for the development of a quality standard. Of a quality standard. Of a quality standard. Which would assert an objectivity to service delivery quality. Which would ascertain an objectivity. Which would ascertain an objectivity. Which would ascertain an objectivity to the service delivery quality. 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 Okay, full stop. Thus the Sevottam. Thus the Sevottam. Thus the Sevottam standard certification. Thus the Sevottam standard certification was developed. Thus the Sevottam standard certification was developed. Thus the Sevottam standard certification was developed. Sevottam standard certification was developed. Sevottam standard certification was developed. Was developed. Was developed. Which led the government in awarding government departments. Which led the government in awarding government departments. In awarding government departments. Which led the government in awarding government departments. who performed excellent who performed excellent in who performed excellent in public service delivery, who performed excellent in public service delivery. Excellence in public service delivery by a Sevottam symbol of excellence. 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 Sevottam symbol of excellence. Okay. Sevottam symbol of excellence. Full stop. Change the paragraph. Obtaining a Sevottam symbol of excellence. Obtaining a Sevottam symbol of excellence. Obtaining a Sevottam symbol of excellence requires obtaining a Sevottam symbol of excellence requires successful implementation of Citizens Charter, successful implementation of Citizens Charter, successful implementation of Citizens Charter, successful implementation of Citizens Charter. 2. Service delivery preparedness and achievement of results. Service delivery preparedness and achievement of results. And 3. Sound public grievance redress mechanism. Sound public grievance redress mechanism. Full stop. Change the paragraph. The Bureau of Indian Standards, BIS, the Bureau of Indian Standards, BIS, developed IS, Indian Standard 15700, 15700, colon 2005, 2005. After following the laid down procedures for standard formulation. After following the laid down procedures for standard formulation. Comma. The draft standard was prepared by a panel of 15 experts from 11 organizations. The draft standard was prepared by a panel of 15 experts from 11 organizations. The draft standard was prepared by a panel of 15 experts from 11 organizations. Full stop. With the adoption of Sevottam, India became the first country in the world. With the adoption of Sevottam, India became the first country in the world to publish a requirement standard for quality management of public service delivery. To publish a requirement standard for quality management of public service delivery. To publish a requirement standard for quality management of public service delivery. Full stop. The inclusion of Citizens Charter. The inclusion of Citizens Charter The inclusion of Citizens Charter implementation. 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 Of Citizens Charter implementation. Citizens Charter implementation. As a condition for achieving the Sevottam award. Achieving the Sevottam award is an important incentive for government departments 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 to is an important incentive for government departments to implement the Citizens Charter effectively. To implement the Citizens Charter effectively. To implement the Citizens Charter effectively. Implement the Citizens Charter effectively. Take, right? So this is the one part. Now just put the last part over it in Citizens Charter. Legal status of a 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 Citizens Charter. Okay. Now, this is a point that we just want to make a sense out of. What a Citizens Charter, let's say, I think you have a fair understanding of what the document of Citizens Charter imply, right? What is it that we're dealing with in terms of a Citizens Charter as a document, which has to be published by government departments to ensure that the citizens have a kind of a standard assessment of what the organization does, vision state, mission statement, information, grievance, redressal, details of clients, etc. These are given in a Citizens Charter as a document. You've understood that part very clearly. Question is, can, let's say for example, a citizen who has read the Citizens Charter, and in, let's say for example, a Citizens Charter, a particular quality has been guaranteed by a, or let's say a quality has been proposed, that let's say for example you have the Indian Railways. So the Indian Railways has said that we are going to give you a comfortable experience while you're train ride, that you will have a basic comfort while you're train ride. That is what they have given as a quality standard in the Citizens Charter. Let's say for example, if you take a train and you have a very uncomfortable experience and you're very, very troubled by the kind of train yatra that you have had recently in the Indian Railways. Question is, can you take the Indian Railways before a court and say that they have promised something in the Citizens Charter, but they have not fulfilled it. What I'm asking is that, is the Citizens Charter a legally enforceable document? Right? Can you take a claim made by a particular organization in Citizens Charter as a claim made by a particular organization in Citizens Charter, and if that claim is not fulfilled, can that organization be, in a way, challenged legally for enforcing that claim or compensating you for not having fulfilled that claim by the, what you can call, the government department? The answer is no. The point about is that citizens charter are not legally enforceable. That's the part. Citizens charter is not legally enforceable. That is what we want to, in a way, make a kind of a assessment of clarity about. The documents, the points which are given within a citizens charter cannot be used in such a manner that they can take a particular organization which has provided the citizens charter guarantees of quality to a court of law. That cannot happen. Right? Citizens charters are not legally enforceable. You get the point? Clear? This is the point that we are, in a way, taking a reference out of. Right? So we'll just put a little bit of a write up upon this. Just write down legal status of a citizens charter. Write down. Citizens charter are not legally enforceable. Just write down. Citizens charters are not legally enforceable. क्या हो रहा है? Citizens charter are not legally enforceable. Citizens charter are not legally enforceable. Citizens charter are not legally enforceable, comma, which implies that citizens charter are not legally enforceable, which implies that a government department, which implies that a government department a government department cannot cannot be cannot be legally challenged. A government department cannot be legally challenged. A government department cannot be legally challenged for not fulfilling the descriptions, not fulfilling the descriptions of a citizens charter. Not fulfilling the descriptions of a citizens charter. Okay, a government department cannot be legally challenged for not fulfilling the descriptions of a citizens charter. Descriptions of a citizens charter. Full stop. You see the point? However, write down. However, the non-fulfillment, the non-fulfillment of its duties, the non-fulfillment of its duties can be raised as a challenge. Can be raised as a challenge. The non-fulfillment of its duties can be raised as a challenge. The non-fulfillment of its duties can be raised as a challenge, before before the grievance redressal, before the grievance redressal mechanism within the department, within the department on the basis of a citizens charter, within the department on the basis of the citizens charter, on the basis of the citizens charter. Full stop. I hope you understand the point about what I'm trying to say. If a person has seen a citizens charter of a particular organization but has not been satisfied with the performance of that organization with respect to the promises made in the citizens charter, that person cannot take the citizens charter to a legal authority, to a court, to a judicial body, and enforce that citizens charter or ask for compensation or ask for penalizing or punishing the government department. The court cannot have a kind of a validity in terms of implementing a citizens charter. It is not legally enforceable. That's the point. But the citizens charter, if it is not imposed, that lack of imposition or lack of, let's say, fulfilling the points given within the citizens charter can be presented before the internal grievance redressal mechanism of that department. So, for example, within that department, if there is a superior authority, let's say one officer of that department has not done his job properly, and if there is a superior authority to that officer, then you can bring the citizens charter to him and the actions by which you feel dissatisfied, and then register a complaint saying that in the citizens charter you have promised us this level of quality delivery. Okay, and if you have not given us this expectation to be fulfilled, then we are registering a complaint. Within the internal administration of the department, a complaint can be made and even enforced. But outside that, to a judicial body, enforcing citizens charter as a legal document is not permissible. It is not a legal document. It is a kind of a social document which has been given by the government department. So it does not create any rights of enforceability. Okay. So this is the last part of citizens charter. With whatever we have covered in citizens charter, all of this is going to be sufficient for you to answer any possible question which may come from the concept of citizens charter, whether in the prelims examination or the main examination. The details and the theories of this entire part has been covered alive. Now there is just a reading material that I will circulate as a PDF document. You will have, let's say for example, a document about reforms, right, currently also, challenges and reforms in the Citizens Charter, right? So there are points that we are reading that the government of India under the DOPT and the DARPG keeps doing a review of what are the challenges being faced by the Citizens Charter, right? So challenges 1, this is this, challenges 2, this is this, challenge 3, and the suggestions, recommendations and reforms which are suggested to address these challenges. I'll circulate a simple document in which you can read the reforms and the challenges, which is going to be this document itself. You see, this is a document by the darpg.gov.in, which has all the ideas over here. So, you know, the documents which I'm going to put out over here is going to be this one. An exercise was identified to undertake an exercise was undertaken to identify the parameters for the evaluation of review of Citizens Charter, right? The Citizens Charter of as many as 47 union ministries, departments, organizations which were available either on website of the DARPG or on the website of the ministry departments were reviewed along with 28 parameters to assess the extent of inclusion and exclusion of these, right? So after the, you know, a review of a Citizens Charter done by the DARPG, the list of things that needed intervention or improvement was created, right? So these are the challenges and reforms part of the Citizens Charter. I'm going to attach this document as a PDF with you after the class is over, and you can take a look at this and get a sense of what the government is saying are the challenges with Citizens Charter and how is the government recommending that these challenges can be overcome, right? So for example, if you have a question like this, critically analyze a Citizens Charter with respect to Indian model of governance, right? You will have an answer to say critical analysis mein what are the challenges being faced by the Citizens Charter. If that kind of a question come, you have a pros and cons, or what you can say, problems and solutions to the implementation of Citizens Charter within the Indian context, right? Once you're able to do that, you can have an understanding of what we are doing, right? So this is the part which we have covered with regard to Citizens Charter. Okay. Now let's take a question. I want to get a sense of this. Tell me one thing. Have we covered the quasi-judicial body of tribunals? Please say yes or no. I'm looking at the chats. Please tell me. Have we covered the quasi-judicial bodies of tribunals? Have we in the class covered tribunals? Please tell me yes or no. Have we covered the subject of tribunals? Please tell me. We have not covered tribunals. Okay, that's a quasi-judicial part. Okay. Okay, fine. And then in addition to that, the question is, um, have we covered, for example, the whole idea of welfare? This is something that we'll cover, right? Welfare state and the government schemes, right? How are the government schemes working and what are the ways in which we are going to take a look at? Okay, this is the one part which is remaining, and then we'll have to cover some parts of e-governance and some parts of accountability. For example, in accountability, we'll take care of what is known as uh, three organizations: the CBI, the CVC, and Lokpal and Lokayat. Right, and also we'll cover in the background of all these three organizations the Prevention of Corruption Act. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the things that we have to cover, and then we'll take a look at what are called the civil society participation, in which we will take a look at NGOs, SHGs, and also specifically we will take a look at the current updates on FCRA. Okay, so these are the parts of governance chapter subject which are remaining with us. Okay, tribunals we'll take a look at, which is a part of the quasi-judicial body. We'll take a look at government schemes, the whole idea of how government schemes are formulated. For example, the centrally sponsored schemes and central sector schemes. Have we covered this? Please tell me. Have we covered the whole concept of centrally sponsored schemes? Have we covered central sector schemes? These are things that we take, what is generally known in this part as Yojana. We'll take a look at these parts a little properly. Very briefly, we'll cover e-governance. We'll cover, for example, Digital India, which is a centrally sponsored scheme, and we'll cover ICT in governance. Okay, these are the two parts we'll cover in Digital India. Then we'll cover accountability, which is CBI, CVC, Lokpal and Lokayat. And we'll cover the Prevention of Corruption Act a little bit. And we'll cover civil society participation through NGOs and SHGs, and special focus upon Foreign Contribution Regulation Act as a special mention about the current affairs. Okay. Okay, so I'm just laying out a set of things that are for us to complete with regard to the governance chapter. Okay, we've come to a conclusion of transparency as a subject item. Apart from e-governance, most of the times the major share of transparency with the right to information and the citizens charter, and the whole idea of vertical accountability, horizontal accountability, monopoly over information transparency, the comparison of the Weberian model with the good governance model, as you can call it, has been laid out before you. Okay, and we've covered the relevant parts of the Representation of People Act, and the disqualification, and etc., etc. Election petitions, about election commission, article 324 to article 329. We have taken a look at all of these things. So major part of it is behind us. These are some aspects of the governance chapter which are remaining with us. Okay, let me take a look at the questions. Okay, Biswajit, is a visa of a foreign country come under the RTI Act? Sometimes visa is delayed or cancelled. Can we RTI file? Okay, that's a good question. That makes me think. Well, now Article 246 of the Constitution says that that you have, for example, the legislative, let's say the scope of the legislative power of the Indian Parliament. Okay, so if you look at the scope of legislative power of Indian Parliament, matlab, on what subjects can Indian Parliament make laws, and then analogously to it, you understand the scope of the executive power of Indian Parliament. Right? If you take a kind of an addition of these two, they are both restricted by Article 1 of the Constitution. That is, both of these can be performed within Article 1, which is India, that is Bharat, is a union of states. The details of states and union territories are given in Schedule 1. So this is the territory of India. and all the powers which are exercised by the Parliament of India, and correspondingly the executive powers by the Government of India can only perform within this limit, right? So the RTI Act being a legislature, a legislation, can only perform within the territory of India in terms of its implementation. Therefore, from this principle, we can deduce that foreign countries which are issuing visas to India will not be covered under the act made by the Parliament of India. Okay. Okay, Nimai. There are many middlemen in RTI office, and to get to a driving license or for a two-wheeler, people contact them, and when they take high amount, is there also a charter of that concerned department by which we can? Yes, yes. Every department, you go to the government department and you say, "Ki, give me a copy of the citizen's charter. If your citizen's charter is online, please direct to me where the citizen's charter is." Every department is mandated to create and preserve a citizen's charter. If you find a department which is not creating a citizen's charter, you can file an RTI asking them what are the reasons that your citizen's charter is not yet available. Once you receive the reasons, you can go to the Department of Administrative Reforms and Personal Grievances and write them a letter saying that this department doesn't have a doesn't have a citizens charter, and in RTI they are not giving enough reasons why they are not implementing a citizens charter, or go to a court by which court can get the department to have some kind of an activity upon this. So though the citizens charter is a very slow moving organism in terms of reforming things, it is not necessarily the case that if a citizen's charter is absent, it can be a completely okay thing, right? These government departments are mandated to create citizen's charter, especially the ones which are dealing with the public directly, like the RTO office. Okay, RTO office. ठीक है ना? What is a Sevottam model? I told you, so Sevottam symbol is, the point is that it's like a standard, ISI standard, quality product. It's like a government department is given a standardization award. I wanted to show you an organization which has received a Sevottam model. Here, take a look at this. The Chief Minister Siddaramaiah has said that the government officials and employees should serve the people without expecting any appreciation from the government and the citizens. He was presenting the Sarvottam Seva Awards here on Sunday. Now, these are the awards. For example, state governments have taken the Sevottam models and created a set of standard of, let's say, for example, the state of Karnataka in this particular case has taken the standard of a Sevottam model and use this standard to award civil servants, public servants, and government officials of efficiently running the government departments. right? So any government department which is performing very well, the chief ministers have, for example, the chief minister of Karnataka has invented the concept of Sarvottam on the basis of Sevottam, which is a kind of a play on words with the Sevottam to give a kind of an award on to the civil servants who are performing better in certain categories, right? So overall, what we are basically saying is that the Sevottam model, as it is giving a kind of a structure by which a set of standards have been created. For example, you have a question after this which says that what is the figure representing 15700 2005. Now these are standardization. For example, the idea is this: let's say if you take a look at water quality, water as a public good which is delivered by the water work system, okay, but which is delivered by the municipality. The idea is that the Sevottam model lays out that if you are involved in the delivery of water, these are the conditions that must be fulfilled by the water that you deliver. Let's say, for example, it must be clean, it must be delivered on time, it must be there must be no glitches. For example, if there is a flood, etc., etc., water delivery should not be impeded by that. You should create enough, checks and balances to not let that happen. Then you have, for example, the fact that the bill of the water should be considerable and it should not be very high for the people to pay. All of these conditions, if they are met, and if, let's say, for example, Indore municipal corporation has been able to maintain the highest standard of water quality according to the Sevottam standards, then they could be given a Sevottam award, and they can, like you have the ISI mark that you can put upon your product. The municipality of Indore can have a kind of a display of the fact that it has been recognized as one of the best municipalities in the country by the Department of Administrative Reforms and Personal Grievances, by displaying this kind of a standardization award it has got. That allows people to work better, that allows the public departments to work motivated by the fact that they can be in a competitive world in which they are declared the best municipality of the country, right? Look at, for example, Indore, the pride that it shows in being declared the number one cleanly, but the most clean city in India. Something of a same aspect works in the Sevottam model also, right? What does the number signify 15700 2005? Well, it's like a patent registration number. You see, it's called Indian standard. The standard meaning a standard is developed as to what a good quality. Let's say, for example, if you are purchasing, let's say, a water pump, you will find on water pump some kind of a standard ISI mark or something like that is given, right? So a standard is that this product matches this standard, right? And therefore it is a kind of a guarantee to the consumer that this product is a good product, right? And the number which is given over here is a registration number of that standard, and the second number which is given is the year in which that registration has happened. So 15700 is the registration number of the Sevottam standard in the year 2005. What is the difference between manifesto of political parties and citizens charter? There's a world of a difference, Biswajit. Manifesto is given by political parties. Okay, political parties are not government. Okay, they are private organizations run by politicians. Okay, citizens charter is given by the department, the public administration that is working over there. There's a world of difference. Nothing similar between the two. Citizens charter is a part of governance. This is a part of politics. Okay. Do we need to quote current examples while writing answers of citizens charter? If yes, then what are the examples that we need to mention? The questions that have been asked in the citizens charter recently in the previous year questions have not asked for any current examples. And frankly speaking, citizens charter is a kind of a thing which is not very heavily in the news, because we are giving it a lot of attention in the because it is a part of the UPSC syllabus. But generally speaking, a news item appearing on Citizens Charter is very infrequent and doesn't form a bulk of the current affair. So it is more or less a part of the static portion, not of the dynamic portion. You don't have a demonstration that you need to give. But the, in current affairs, questions are generally asked of those kinds which have a static, which have a dynamic, potential in them. But the infrequency, the rarity with which a citizen's charter appear in the news is so much that UPSC doesn't expect you to have read that particular current affair about the citizen's charter. So generally we consider this as a part of a, what you can call a static portion. But of course, you are free to go on Google and just type citizens charter under the news heading and take a list of some things which are happening. I'm sure you can cover all of them by the basic understanding that is taken in the class. That would be sufficient for you to develop a set of notes, but I don't think that is going to be of a lot of help while writing the answers. Okay, all right, so we take a break and then we resume. Thank you.